Welcome to Family Basics 101. I'm Dr. Bruce McClure, the local minister at the Prince George's Church of Christ, and we're located at 7800 Central Avenue in Landover, Maryland. Throughout this week, we've scaled down from 5 days a week to 3 days per week doing Family Basics 101. And this week, we've looked at topics that are relevant to the current time that we are living in. Today, I want us to talk about the filibuster. What is a filibuster? You've heard that term probably for the past 6 months at least. On almost every news show, you hear it from the president, you hear it from the vice president, you hear it from especially the Senate, and you just hear so much about this thing called the filibuster. But just in regular, everyday America, let's talk today about what it really means. It originates from a Dutch word meaning pirate. As when pirates stole, they took and they pillaged from the Spanish colonies in the West Indies. It actually means to hijack. Dating back as far as 60 BC, the Roman Senate did not limit how long members could speak. I'm going to share with you a passage from the book of Acts at the conclusion of today's lesson that show you how far back and how widespread this filibuster really is. The filibuster is also referred to as talking a bill to death. And its main characteristic is to obstruct any modification or any decisions that might be made. The filibuster now is a political tactic dating back to the mid-1800s that describes how senators hold hostage an entire legislative body. The filibuster, as we look at it according to history, American history specifically, it has been argued that the main purpose of the filibuster is to empower a minority party that otherwise would have little power of persuasion in the Senate. Well, in reality, it paralyzes the ability of the majority to act. And you can see that even with what's going on in America today. In the House of Representatives, there is no filibuster due to a strict time limit being already set that a representative can speak on the House floor. So it's over on the Senate side, not on the House of Representatives side, that we deal with this filibuster. Now, the truth of the matter is the filibuster in the United States, in the Senate, was really born out of a loophole dating all the way back to Vice President Aaron Burr. Burr lived from 1756 to 1836, but this event goes back to 1805. Burr declared that the Senate didn't need to be burdened by too many procedural rules because there was already in place a process to end debate known as the previous question motion. So upon Burr's recommendation, the Senate dropped the proposal to eliminate this filibuster. Burr actually tricked them. Now, in 1804, there was a duel, you may recall it from American history, between Burr and Alexander Hamilton, or you may have seen the play Hamilton. And in 1807, Aaron Burr was charged with conspiracy that ruined his political career. He had been elected to the US Senate in 1791, and in 1800, he had unsuccessfully run for the US presidency. Well, because he wasn't elected president, he served under President Thomas Jefferson, making Burr the third vice president of the United States. He was a very politically ambitious, by hook or by crook type person. In 1917, Woodrow Wilson was successful at rallying public outcry against the filibuster and lobbied in the Senate to adopt Rule 22 that authorized a 2/3 vote to invoke an official closure to debate known as cloture. Now, in 1967, cloture was used when Southern lawmakers, now this is where the story gets clearer. In 1967, cloture was used when Southern lawmakers tried to filibuster the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This went on for 57 days before the Senate obtained a supermajority of 67 votes to call for cloture. Well, what is cloture? It's simply closing. Let's bring this to an end. By 1975, the rules were changed to make cloture possible with 3/5 majority votes or 60 votes. 41 senators can indefinitely block a bill by refusing to end debate or vote for cloture. Now, keep that point in mind. 41 senators can indefinitely block a bill, because on the next screen, I'm going to show you what they mean by minority and majority. The reason today why the vote of the West Virginia senator and the Arizona senator are crucial, even to this day, with the John Lewis Civil Rights Bill, the reason for that West Virginia senator and that Arizona senator, the reason their votes are so important, that both parties have 50 votes, 50 for the Democrats, 50 for the Republicans. In the case of a tie, the vice president becomes the determining vote. So you have a Democratic senator and a Republican senator from each state. There are 100. But the tiebreaker is always the vice president of the United States. With the West Virginia senator and with the Arizona senator kind of hanging on the fence, do you see what that does? That in essence will destroy the possibility of a vote. And that's why this filibuster law is so deadly. And most of the time, it is detrimental to things surrounding civil rights. The filibuster protects the minority, but who is the minority? Who is the minority? We think of the minority as being, in terms of African American brown people. Well, that is a minority, but that's not really who they're trying to protect. The culture rule provides a method for cutting off filibusters by a small group, but it was powerless against the filibusters supported by more than a third of the senators, which explains how Southern Democrats were able to use filibusters to kill every meaningful civil rights bill for the next 47 years. Now, keep in mind, Southern Democrats are not the Democrats of the day. Southern Democrats were people like Strom Thurmond. And now we call them Republicans, Dixiecrats. But the Democrats of the time of the filibuster were not the Democratic Party of the day. The Southern filibusters were serious. They were well-organized power plays designed to defeat any attempt to extend equal rights to African American people. For decades, the House passed bills to outlaw discrimination and protect the rights of Black citizens to vote, only to watch the bill killed by filibusters in the Senate. In an era when white mobs frequently lynched Black people with impunity, Southern senators used the filibusters to defeat anti-lynching bills. In 1922, 1935, 1938, 1948, and 1949. And I'll show you some specifics of those in just a second. While filibustering to deny rights to minority groups, Southern senators had the gall to tout the filibuster as a tool to protect minority rights, meaning the right of the minority of senators to prevent the majority from voting on civil rights bills. You see the difference? See, in our heads, in our way of thinking, we think it's designed to protect the minority race. But in their mind, the filibuster is a deceitful tool that is used as their ace in the hole when there's a bill they don't like. It's not to protect the minority race of people. It is designed to protect the minority in the Senate. Without the filibuster, said Senator Theodore Bilbo of Mississippi, the minority would be at the mercy of the majority. Well, we think he's talking about the minority of race, but he's saying, no, the minority in the Senate. We'd be at the mercy of the majority in the Senate. Well, right now, the majority in the Senate, you've got 50 Democratic senators, but you've got a vice president. That's a 51 minority, a majority over 50. The filibuster is the last defense of reason, the sole defense of minorities, said Senator Lyndon Johnson of Texas, while filibustering against a 1949 civil rights bill. Well, you say, but didn't he later sign the Civil Rights Act? Yeah, but he didn't do it out of the goodness of his heart. It had nothing to do with Lyndon Johnson's concern about the minority African Americans. Senator Millard Tydens of Maryland took the argument even further. It was culture, he said, that crucified Christ on the cross. In other words, when Pilate said, I wash my hands of it, that was culture. That ended it. The debate was over. So it cost Jesus his life. That's a sorry excuse for trying to justify a filibuster. I told you I'd share with you some historic uses of the filibuster, but look at how consistent they were against civil rights. Ironically, Strom Thurmond of South Carolina, armed with throat lozenges and malted milk balls, spoke for 24 hours and 18 minutes. He hijacked, to stall, to derail the Civil Rights Act of 1957. In 1891, this filibuster was used to kill the federal election bill that would have provided federal oversight of the state elections that selected members of the House. In 1922, the filibuster was used to kill the Dyer anti-lynching bill, which was first introduced in 1918, which was a tactic used to suppress Black votes. In 1934, the filibuster was used to kill the Costigan-Wagner anti-lynching bill. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt used the excuse that if the bill passed, it would destroy my New Deal for the country. In 1942, the filibuster was used to kill the anti-poll tax bill, requiring Blacks to pay a tax before they could vote. In 1946, the filibuster was used to kill the Fair Employment Practice Bill that would make employment discrimination illegal. And in 1970, the filibuster was used to kill the amendment to abolish the Electoral College, which was originally designed to give Southern states more power because of their large enslaved population of Black people. In a 1968 Gallup poll, 80% of Americans believe the US citizens should directly elect their president. One man, one vote. How many people vote for a candidate? Let that number be the number. And finally, I told you I would share with you a biblical illustration of the filibuster. In Acts, the 19th chapter, beginning at verse 23, about that time there arose a great disturbance about the way, meaning Christianity. A silversmith named Demetrius, who made silver shrines to Artemis, bought in a lot of business for the craftsmen there. He called them together along with the workers in related trades and said, "You know, my friends, that we receive a good income from this business. And you see and hear how this fellow Paul has convinced and led astray a large number of people here in Ephesus, and is practically the whole province of Asia. He says that gods made by human hands are no gods at all. There is danger not only that our trade will lose its good name, but also that the temple of the great goddess Artemis will be discredited, and the goddess herself, who is worshiped throughout the province of Asia and the world, will be robbed of her divine majesty." When they heard this, they were furious and began shouting. You see the hijacking? "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." Soon the whole city was in a big uproar. The people seized Gaius and Aristarchus, Paul's traveling companions from Macedonia, and all of them rushed into the theater together. Paul wanted to appear before the crowd, but the disciples would not let him. Even some of the officials of the province, friends of Paul, sent him a message begging him not to venture into the theater. The assembly was in a confusion. Some were shouting one thing, some another. Most of the people did not even know what they were there for. The Jews in the crowd pushed Alexander to the front, and they shouted instructions to him. He motioned for silence in order to make a defense before the people. But when they realized he was a Jew, they shouted all in unison for about 2 hours. You see the filibuster? Great is Artemis of the Ephesians. But remember, we just said the majority of the people didn't even know what they were fussing about. And yet they filibustered. The city clerk quieted the crowd and said, "Fellow Ephesians, doesn't all the world know that the city of Ephesus is a guardian of the temple of the great Artemis and of her image, which fell from heaven? Therefore, since these facts are undeniable, you ought to calm down and not do anything rash. You've bought these men here, though they have neither robbed temples nor blasphemed our goddesses. If then Demetrius and his fellow craftsmen have a grievance against anybody, the courts are open and there are proconsuls. They can press charges. If there is anything further you want to bring up, it must be settled in a legal assembly, but not through this filibuster. As it is, we are in danger of being charged with rioting because of what happened today. In that case, we would not be able to account for this commotion, since there is no reason for it." Do you see what's happening? Now, the Senate of the United States is considered the saucer. When things are boiling over from the House and it comes over to the Senate is considered the cooling off place, the place of reason, the place of saying, but let's wait a minute, let's think through this. And after he said this, he dismissed the assembly. Oh, what it would be like if people would be honest and say to their fellow patriots, citizens, congressmen, senators, guys, what we're doing, you know, and I know it's wrong. Do we want to come up on the wrong side of history on this? Do we want it to be said that because of people and their self-serving agendas, we disenfranchised an entire population of American citizens for our own political reasons, our own financial gain, our own self-serving purposes? Somebody needs to stand up like the city clerk did in Acts 19. I'll see you back in class again Monday. Don't be late and don't skip class.